Hey guys, gonna do something a little different. This time we're driving, so I'm up here doing some location scouting up in the Hudson Valley for a video that's coming up, and I look forward to showing you guys this video when it's done. But in any case, as I was driving, I was thinking to myself about some comments this morning on some videos that I recently did. And I mean, I get these all the time, so this is not anything new. I use pro equipment, you know, and I get at least one comment, if not two, sometimes three, sometimes a dozen, on videos about how, number one, the equipment that I'm using is overpriced. Number two, it's not worth it. And number three, I am surely being paid off by these companies to use it, because any normal person could never use this equipment. It's really only photographers that are being paid off that use it. So yeah, that in and of itself is kind of funny, but beyond that, the part that I think is the funniest, and why I was laughing to myself, is that these comments are always followed by 2 to 3 paragraphs, sometimes more, where they're explaining to me how their cheap-ass Chinese knockoff piece of shit flash is so great. All of its features, how it does this better, how it does that. And I read through these things and I smile and I say, well, man, surely you must be getting paid off by this Chinese company, because why else would you ever say something good about a piece of equipment that, you know, you just happen to have? Obviously that's not true. You know, the reality is that we all use the equipment that we need and that we can afford. And I think somebody blasting a piece of equipment because it's, quote, expensive, without understanding why that piece of equipment is expensive, is just, you know, off base completely. You know, that's just the way I have to look at it. I mean, the reality is that you are paying for something when you buy high-end equipment. You're generally paying for reliability, you're paying for consistency. You know, this equipment, even the best equipment, can fail. And when you're doing a job, you want to minimize that chance. And, you know, there's always that, but I could buy 3 of these for the price of that. Okay, but do you buy 3 of them? And even if you did buy 3, if you were doing a wedding and you had this flash on your camera and you started shooting and all of a sudden it was unreliable, it didn't work, whatever, you're gonna go to your bag and pull out the backup one and switch it. Oh, guess what? The wedding's not gonna stop for you, right? So, I don't know. To me, I'm all about buying what I can afford, but also what I need. And when I can't afford it, I rent it, especially if it's something I don't do a lot. Let's say that I'm, you know, primarily shooting with small flashes, speed lights, whatever, and every once in a while I get a job to shoot a fashion catalog that's going to be in studio. You know, I don't try to rig my speed lights up, even though you can do it, to shoot that fashion catalog. I take a little bit of the money that I'm going to make from it and I rent myself some studio lights. It makes sense to do that. If I'm learning to shoot portraiture and I buy some, you know, inexpensive mono lights and triggers, and I'm in my basement shooting people or whatever, you know, and that's fine. And then I get hired by a magazine to do a portrait of a CEO. I don't use that same junk, right? Because I know that when I'm using it, it's not going to be as reliable. You know, and the thing is that it's not consistent. Like, if they could make some cheap light and they were like, oh yeah, every 5th shot it doesn't fire. Okay, well then you could live with that, but it's never that. It's always when you need it. And then you're shooting it doesn't go off, then you gotta mess with it. And then the color shifts and the power is slightly different every exposure. You know, and these things make a difference. It makes you look less professional, because when you're working professionally, the client is almost surely going to see most of the images that you're creating. It's not like you can take somebody, shoot 100 pictures of them, spend hours retouching, and then give them 1 or 2 pictures. It usually doesn't work like that. They're usually there with you, wanting to see them right away, and you know, you don't want to have everything look bad or unprofessional and have to explain to people why or how you're going to fix things. So, I mean, that's why I buy better gear. And for the people that think that, you know, their cheap gear is just as good or whatever, it's just surely that you've either watched way too many videos of people who probably are getting paid by those cheap companies promoting it, or you just don't understand the physics of lighting. I remember, and I'm not gonna, maybe I should try to find it, but I'm not gonna try to find it because I don't have the energy to do it, but Broncolor did this video about how they had really short flash duration. I'm gonna say it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And there's a company that makes lights in various colors. I won't say who they are. They hired a guy, quite clearly, because it wasn't them that was doing it, but there was this guy that was one of their main guys that uses them, to replicate that, to show how their flash duration is just as good. And I literally had people walking in showing me this video, And I had to, so they basically supposedly were recreating the same thing the Broncolor did. However, bullshit. They didn't do it. They basically were doing these water splashes, and they were using the angle of the water in a completely different way than the Broncolor video was to actually make it so the water wasn't moving nearly as fast. And it wasn't as sharp. I was looking at it, I'm like, this is not as frozen as the Broncolor one. It's not. So, yeah, it's not stopping it, and the water's not going as fast. But to a casual observer, it's like, man, this pink and yellow and black and green light thingy can stop the water on this model just as good as that $10,000 Broncolor. No, bullshit. However, are you going to be doing those shots? Maybe not. So maybe you didn't need the Broncolor. That's also fine. I'm not saying that you need to have the absolute best for every single thing you do. But again, don't think it's the same. You're just pumping yourself up and making it. It's not. It is not the same. You buy the equipment that you need. There is a reason why some equipment is more expensive than others. It's just the way it is. You don't if the reason why you're like puffing up your chest is because you feel bad that you couldn't afford it, don't. Feel happy that you get to make pictures and get to create art, with your camera. It doesn't matter if you can afford the stuff or not, but don't try to say it's not well, I don't know, worth it is probably the way to say it. It's not worth it for some people. Don't try to say it's the same thing or that it's overpriced. It just isn't, right? It's just not the same thing. And I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've used all kinds of equipment. And I can tell you that when you use better equipment, it makes a difference, whether it be better cameras, better lenses, better lighting, all that stuff. And, there's also some companies that started off making really crappy stuff that makes better stuff now. So, there's different levels of these things too. So, I guess the one last example I'll give, since I've been blabbing for so long and I'm not quite home yet, is that, years ago, before Pocket Wizard came out with something that was very affordable, now they have that X or whatever the hell they call it. People used to always come in and want to buy really cheap triggers. And they'd come to me and they'd be like, oh, we're going to go to Adorama and buy some cheap triggers to fire our cameras. What do you recommend? And I'd be like, well, if you have the budget, I would get Pocket Wizard. But do I need that? They're like $200 a piece. Well, I mean, I don't know if you need it or not. It's like, do you need the flash to fire every single time? Yeah, I do. Okay, then you need Pocket Wizard. Yeah, but isn't the other ones? Well, they might not be as reliable. Well, how unreliable are they? I don't know. If I knew, then they wouldn't be unreliable, right? Unreliable means that they're not going to fire sometimes. Pocket Wizards are going to fire all the time. You're shooting sports. You're rigging lights up in an arena. You're shooting a wedding. You're shooting a rocket launch or whatever for NASA. You want Pocket Wizards, You want those lights to fire every single time. You're making portraits of people that you know and it's casual. Okay, fine. You take a shot, the flash doesn't fire. It's not the end of the world. So really, who are you and what do you need makes that decision. But again, don't be like, well, you know what? I'm just going to be cheap and buy the cheaper ones because I think it's just as good. Nah, it's not. It's not just as good. Anyways, that's a rant. So I guess let me know if my cheap camera that's in the iPhone that's shooting me now is as good as the Sonys I've been using. And tell me how I'm wrong about everything else. Or tell me I'm right, who knows. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you like this style, because I'm probably going to try to do more vloggy videos like this when I get inspired. Probably my arm will become very muscular from holding the camera up while I'm driving. Yeah, thanks for subscribing and everything, and I'll see you later, guys.